Every day, citizens around the country are faced with new dilemmas. Dilemmas that affect them profoundly. Whether it's injustice, discrimination, falling through the cracks, scandals and cronyism, balances of power, ethics, religious freedoms, state versus citizens, and unfunded mandates, and the list goes on and on and on. Welcome to Speak Up. It's directed at those who have fallen through the cracks, and it gives them a voice. It's your turn to speak up, to stand up and fight back. Thank you for joining us for Speak Up. This is the program that allows people to come here and be heard. Today's program is kind of special because what I'm going to show you is a particular type of vetting that we, on the Redress of Grievance Committee, generally do. It's a basic interview about anybody, whether it has to do with mortgages, family courts, custody battles, people who feel as though that the government has overstepped their bounds and basically abused you. So today is basically a program where I just get to know the story. I get to hear the story the first time. Another point that I'd like to bring out with today's story is that if there is a state representative that would like to take up this petitioner's case, please feel free to call or email at speakupnh@gmail.com. Thank you for joining us for Speak Up. I want to introduce my next guest, Mr. Michael Holman. Holman.
Yes, H-O-L-M-A-N.
Michael, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Absolutely, Kevin.
Mike, if I can call you Mike.
Sure.
Yeah. I want to get to the whole idea of vetting your story for potential state representatives and for people to understand what's going out there in New Hampshire.
Right.
And I want to hear your story. So if you don't mind talking a little bit about what brought you to New Hampshire, where is your case going? Tell us a little bit about yourself. If you can start off like that, that'd be wonderful.
Okay. Well, Kevin, how it started is I took a position as building boats in Marblehead, Massachusetts, which is a bit away from New Hampshire, but not too far. And I decided that, me and my family, we would need a home. So I allowed the mother to do some research and figure out where she'd like to live. And she came across a real estate magazine that had a picture of a beautiful home up in the White Mountains up in Madison, New Hampshire. And she absolutely had to have this home. It was really nice. It was all cedar on like an acre, and tall ceilings and everything. So I made an offer on that house and got approved for it. And so we bought that home. And we moved in, I believe it was on Thanksgiving of 2005. I could be wrong on the year, but something like that. I think it was 2005. And that's what brought me to New Hampshire. The mother of my children was not the best choice of a woman, but we both cared for each other. And so I ended up having 3 children with her. We never married, but we, lived together as best we could, but it was not a good thing. She ended up being opiate addicted, but a lot of that was never dealt with because her family would help her hide that fact.
Is it prescription drugs or was it?
Oh no, she was in the streets. It was crack cocaine, and then it moved up to heroin actually. Oh. But I wouldn't be able to tell. I'd get home from work, and the kids would be changed, and I'd come home and I'd cook a meal, and everything would seem fine. It was only a few times that I would actually catch her maybe going through a withdrawal, and she'd be there with her family, and they would be standing around her, and I'd be like, what is wrong with her? And they would just look at me like I was a fool. And it would be, drugs of some sort.
So they were enabling her throughout this whole process?
Absolutely, absolutely. And actually her sister worked in the Meriden Courthouse in Connecticut. for over a decade. So I didn't know that she was using influence there to keep this mother from ever being charged with child neglect, child abuse, physical neglect. She was getting away with everything. And it was not until later when I approached Department of Children and Families that I was seeing in these reports, well, this incident happened here, and you know, she attacked the car driver because the child was left out in the middle of the street, but she wasn't arrested, and things of this nature. And I really felt helpless. You're standing there saying, well, something should be done, but there's nothing being done. You don't really know why. Well, it was because her sister had influence. The family knew, the police department family knew, the court system. And
here in New Hampshire?
No, in Connecticut. Okay. But I believe they made a call up there. I mean, that's just how close, you know, if you know law enforcement, they can call one city to another. I don't care how many states across it is. They say, hi, this is Chief whatever, this is our, we know her, blah, 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 look out for her. And things were being covered up. So things got bad. She had 2 older sons from a previous that were, I believe, 14 and 15 at the time, younger kids. And they were not, we're a mixed family, and they were Caucasian kids. I mean, I cared about them just as much as anybody else would. They loved me. We respected each other. But I was not allowed to keep these kids in under control because the mother was very controlling of them. She would not, oh, you're not going to stop them. And she was very poor parenting as far as
that's a recipe for disaster, actually.
And it was. And literally the problem was this. Judge Albee up in Conway, District Court or Superior Court, whatever it is, these kids were literally getting busted. The first day we moved in, they were brought home in a sheriff's car. It was Sheriff McGinley's car. The sheriff said they've been caught trying to break in a home. They've got marijuana on them, and I'm just sitting here dumbfounded. I'm like, are you kidding me? And he said, no, I'm bringing them here, dropping them off.
This is not a good beginning.
No, and she jumps in this sheriff's car and they go down to the police station. Everything's thrown out. Well, this continued, and the mother, I would come home from work, and she would say, you need to go pick him up from the school. He's gotten thrown out. And all these things were happening. Home invasions, a burglary of a grocery store. These are young kids. Drug possession, they were almost finding weapons and pills. The Judge Albee was wiping everything clean. Chief John Pickering, who had just become chief of Madison, New Hampshire Police Department, was actually retired as a colonel from the state police of the New Hampshire. So he knew everyone. And he was championing the mother. He was literally, you're not going to do anything to the kids. And Albee was pretty much, that's what happened. None of the kids didn't face anything. Well,
can you document that?
I don't, what they're going to probably tell us is it's not part of public record because they were underage. You can't take a kid's record and say this is what they were doing. But
no lawyers are involved at this point.
No, the judge is always just, you know, dismiss or whatever. But if she wants to challenge me as to whether I'm a liar or not, Judge Albee, feel free to. I've blogged all kind of things about her, and you can't fear somebody who's already proving that they are criminally minded. You know, this judge should be saying, here's this family, this woman's opiate addicted. I should be feeling sorry for the father, but in fact, no. Whether that's based on race or whatever, she's basically saying, no, I'm siding with this opiate addicted woman.
Now, these are her children that are getting into, from previous
From a previous, yes. My sons are 5, 3, and 2. They're helpless.
Let me advance the conversation to your children and their being at risk, if you will.
Yes.
Take us there. Now, she's being enabled by her family.
Yeah, all 3 sons were born with drugs in their system. You could go a whole month and you wouldn't think that anything was going on. But at the time of delivery or something, there'd be like, oh, well, he's going into ICU. They have to keep him. He's premature, you know, 5 pounds. And it would be like the doctors would say, well, she was on drugs, and I wouldn't even know these things.
Was DCYF notified at this time?
DCYF Well, my sons were done being born when we bought the house in New Hampshire. But yeah, the problem is DCYF should have known from DCF.
Oh, I see. All right. Okay.
You know, they're supposed to send you up files if you especially when her older kids are getting in trouble. They should have said, well, what's going on? They're going to look at her past, and
their history should have followed them to New Hampshire.
Well, I'm sure it did, but someone also said it's none of his business. It's our business. And her and her family completely tried to keep it shut down. Actually, her mother even would show up in the courts up in New Hampshire when I was trying to protect the kids. And they had me. The first 2 times, well, anyway, yes, my sons had been born, but I was doing my best to protect them. They were young. My youngest was 2 at the time. And all these things were happening. So I finally got to the point, I had injured my back. I was building America's Cup racing sailboats in Rhode Island. I fell off the back of a boat and I was injured. So that sent me home, and they paid me to sit down and recuperate for a year and a half. They wanted to operate and all these things. Well, I took that opportunity. Well, you sit there so much time, you're thinking, it's time for I need to do something about what's going on. You know, I'm not traveling every day doing all my work on these different boats all over New England. It was time to do something, and all these crimes are happening. So I told the mother, I basically said, you know what's going on here. This is all very bad. You're not keeping these things from happening. I said, I think it's time that we move away from New England, because my thing was, you're being enabled by everyone.
Right.
So I decided to take a position on the West Coast, and I found a very large yacht builder, and they invited me out, and I flew out, and we spoke. And I was going to take a position up in the Peninsula Mountains of Washington State. And so I flew out. We decided I would move there. So I came back, and I said, okay, I told Wendy, I said, I'm going to take the kids with me. I'm going to go find a house, you know, figure out where I want to live and so forth. And so I had a written permission from her, and, you know, document stating, you know, Michael has permission to take the kids to Canada or Washington, wherever they want to go. And she dropped us off at the train.
Even though you're the father?
No, I didn't take her sons from the previous. I took my 3 babies, which I am the biological father.
Right.
So she drops us off at the Boston Amtrak station. I buy us tickets, and me and my 3 little kids, we have this great trip all the way across America, all the way over into Seattle, Washington. And I got the kids away, and I rented a really nice house there, and bought us a car, and we were, you know, just taking it easy, good to be away from New Hampshire. Well, at that time, the kids made a revelation to me. Actually, my oldest, Ryan, did. He said, Dad, I am being sexually abused, and the mother and the aunt are aware of it. They're trying to stop it, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, wow, you know, that hits you like a ton of bricks. Then you lose trust. It's then that I shouldn't even let you talk to her on the phone. And so Wendy was calling, well, when you guys coming back? And I had a hard time just being blunt with her. I'd be like, well, I told you, I have no desire to come back and go through all the criminal things that are going on, this, that, and the other. And then it was finally like, I said, well, he told me that there's sexual stuff going on. And she denied it. And I basically told her, I said, I'm not bringing the children back. She didn't know what to do. She called the chief of police, and of course he was the champion of her, and he immediately, he contacted me. He said, I understand you're not bringing the kid. I said, no. I said, you know the crimes that are going on, and now my sons have been away from her for a couple of months, and now they're loosening up, and she's not over them. Now they're open to tell me what's going on.
Did you ask the chief to start an investigation?
I did. I asked the chief. He refused to. He said, I will not start an investigation unless you're here. And what this was his thinking was, I just need to get you back here with those kids. I'll take the kids and I'll do whatever I want to you.
Without mentioning any names, was there a person that was implicated in this particular crime?
Yes. Well, I knew I had seen kids before performing some sex acts, not my sons, but others. And I brought that to the mother's attention. And, you know, you try to help kids. You know they're going to experiment. But you had to put your foot down, and which I did, I had before.
Okay, so Chief wants you back. Did you come back?
No.
Okay.
No, I told him, I said, I'm not coming back. I tried to make a report of sexual abuse with him. He said, I won't take it without you being here. And then he suggested, well, you go do it locally, which I did. I went to the local sheriff, and I said, my sons have been sexually abused, this, that, and the other. And then the chief tried to say, well, you're lying. And he said, I investigated it. And I said, there's no, he said, basically he just went and asked the kids, have you guys been doing anything? And of course, you know, kids, no. He just took them, well, I mean, they've been committing every crime. I know, I grew up around, I think my best friend, his mom was a senator, and I had helped her campaign and everything else, but her husband was public safety director. And many times we sat around the dinner table, and I know, you know, they explained to me the signs of all kinds of things. I said, kids are going to act up when there's abuse like that. And so I tried to get an investigation, and they took the kids in, and they started questioning them. Well, John Pickering, the chief of police in Madison, came up with this idea that he was coming to get the kids. I said, no, I'm going to file for a protective order. And I did. I made it to the courthouse, and I filed for a protective order.
In Washington or in New Hampshire?
In Washington.
Okay.
The day before, I knew what day it was going to be approved. The day before, he showed up somehow and said no. He forced that court there, said, no, we're getting a habeas, you take the children. And yeah, so I'm in this big, beautiful house. You know, me and the kids are taking it easy. We're just getting away from the hell that we're experiencing in New Hampshire. 8 squad cars show up at my house. So Chief Pickering has faxed a picture of me just waking up in bed, so I look like I'm half drunk or something, maybe. But well, when I seen the file of what he sent, it was basically he painted a picture that maybe this man has beat his wife. I have never put my hands on the mother of my kids, and we'll both admit that every day, that no matter what I've been through, I am not able to literally beat somebody, you know, harm them in that way.
Right.
8 squad cars show up, and they're coming in. They say, we're taking the kids. We got
an
paperwork.
extradition.
Yeah, habeas. And I said, well, I want to go before the judge and fight it, which I did get a chance. And they absolutely just said, we don't care. We're giving.
Did you have an attorney?
I did not. I literally only had a day or so to you know, you think my protective order is going through tomorrow, and next thing you know, knock, 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 and there's, you know, 8 cars out front. Right. And every officer in the town.
So we're still in Washington State.
Mm-hmm. They take the kids, they go put them in foster care. And yeah, literally. And Judge Albee is behind this, and John Pickering, the former colonel of the New Hampshire State Police. I go before the judge in Washington, and I'm begging. I'm literally saying there's crimes every week. The kids just revealed sexual abuse. I said, I've studied the law from what I've had a few hours to search. You can protect these children from this opiate-addicted woman where the cops are in the house. And the judge says, it was actually the commissioner.
She's back in New Hampshire.
Uh-huh.
The kids are in foster homes now in Washington State?
Yes, for about 10 days.
Okay.
Now, they refused to protect my kids, and they said, we're sending them back. And so then I called Child Protective Services in Washington. I said, what is this? This is crazy. I said, I want to see my kids. They said, you're not going to see your kids. You want to see your kids, go back to New Hampshire. They told me that verbatim. So, of course, you're devastated. I couldn't eat for days. I was crying. I was going through, you know, I'm in this big house all alone. You know, everything was great. I'm feeding them, washing clothes, taking care of my kids. I'm off work. My back's hurt, but I got a new position, you know, new company to work for. And I'm just torn up. I did not know what to do. So they actually fly the mother out to Washington to pick up the children. Now, Chief Pickering has gone to the I think it's the National Association for Exploited and Missing Children. They've actually, Pickering or somebody or Kelly Ayotte or someone has put together this garbage and went and said, we need to go get the kids from this father. He's tried to kidnap them. They did not say he removed his children from a home that was full of drugs and weapons, and I've got 14 and 15-year-olds who are doing home invasions and burglaries and robberies and have actually been threatening the father. They didn't say that. So it was really racist tinged. I know Kelly was behind it. I know that Judge Albee was behind it. So they removed the children, and I just have to deal with it. I fly to New Hampshire for my first child protective hearing. Now, I'm going here to protect my kids, and I'm also going to try to get custody. I am met with a warrant for my arrest by John Pickering, the ex-colonel.
What crime did you commit?
He wanted to charge me with filing a false police report for reporting that my sons had been sexually abused. Okay. Now, this is incredible because he's already protecting kids from being arrested for a number of crimes. Now he's covering for these kids, saying, I'm just going to take you at face value. You said you didn't touch the kids. I'm going after the black guy. Well, you know, I hate to be racist like that, but, you know, I'm 46 years old. I've seen everything happen on the street, and I can just see this guy saying, you know, pulling a cop aside or pulling the judge aside, look, you know, this guy, you know, take our side. We're the good, you know, American, you know, dream or whatever. So I show up. He's got a warrant for my arrest. And he puts me in a whole lockup, actually, and takes all my paperwork. He says, set your bags down. He takes my paperwork. While I'm in lockup, he says, I've got your paperwork. I know you've been calling the FBI, because I'm making all kind of calls after the kids are removed. I said,
You called the FBI?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Keep going. Yeah.
So I'm in lockup. And he literally walks by me while I'm in lockup. Nobody else is in there. He says, I've got your paperwork, and I know you've been talking to the FBI. They're on my side.
Did he go through your paperwork?
He had it. I don't know if they were absolutely my files. He was carrying some files, and that's exactly, I packed everything.
So where do we go with this?
I get into the hearing. I get an OR, you know, and I explain to the judge, you know, released on your own recognizance or whatever, and I tell the judge, look, you know these kids have been before you. They're in danger. They admitted sexual abuse, and she goes, yeah, I heard all that, and blah, blah, blah. Let's discuss these, you know, charges on you. And I said, they're bogus, and I don't care where you're coming from. So the judge says, okay, I'm going to release you on bail, and, you know, we're going to continue this. So I leave town pretty dejected. You know, I showed up, and I'm ready to fight, and all of a sudden I'm thrown in lockup. I haven't done anything. I'm a, you know, respected boat builder. I've got a house over my kid's head, and here's this opiate-addicted mother sitting over here looking really beautiful. She doesn't have to peep a word, and literally, she's still got the kids, and they're taking care of her.
Did you get an attorney at this point?
I flew back to the state of Washington, and I did locate an attorney. Her name was Jennifer Haskell, and she is out of Wolfboro, I believe it is.
Wolfboro, New Hampshire?
Yes,
okay.
New Hampshire. And she took my case, and she said, you know, I'm going to deal with it. You need to start paying child support because she's got the mother. And it was, I said, you know, it upset me, but I said, you know, that's fine. You know, I'm getting a certain amount of money per week. I'll pay it. And she sort of starts an argument with me. And she says, that's it. You know, you're arguing with me. I don't like this. And then she said to me, by phone, she said, my career has been threatened. I cannot represent you. And
did she say by who?
No. But that's verbatim. My career has been threatened. I cannot represent you. So
did the court have a docket date for you to have a hearing, or did you file any type of...
Well, I immediately, on my own, because I'm here between states, and I was trying to get Jennifer to do certain things that I wanted her to do, and she abandoned me. She did. She claimed a breakdown in communication, which was an absolute fabrication, and she abandoned me days before an important hearing. And then I have paperwork from DCYF that she showed up with DCYF and said, oh, he's not showing up, and and she signed some false affidavit with the chief of police saying, yeah, he was supposed to show, but he said he's not showing. So she abandoned me. So, but I did find a new attorney.
Did DCYF at any point interview you?
I had been interviewed in the state of Washington when I was telling them about what I was going through with my children.
But in New Hampshire, did they interview you at any point?
Well, I would only fly in for hearings. They didn't interview me. They might have done some over the phone. The first person who dealt with it, her name was Athena Rios, or Athena Cote, C-O-T-E, or Rios. And her first report that she came up with basically didn't mention anything about the mother's past, which I had come to find out at the time I didn't even know. She had had 5 previous reports of physical neglect or some kind of neglect of her her earlier kids, and maybe a few of mine. In the first report, which I got my hands on, Athena Rios did not address Wendy's past neglect charges, did not address Wendy's opiate addiction, didn't really address these things. It went and said Michael Holman is fighting against Chief Pickering, trying to make Pickering look bad. And this took me aback. I said, well, your report is supposed to deal with the best interest of the kids, and right now your best interest is John Pickering. So I know he made her do that. He went to her and said, this is what you're going to do. That's,
Can you fast forward me through the process with the courts and where you feel that great injustice is being served?
I hired another attorney, Stanley Hawthorne. Paid him $3,000 cash. I got in a settlement for my back injury, and I said, you know, I'm going to hire somebody who says, he was suggested to me by Lee Newman, I think, who's with Fathers for Justice here in New Hampshire. And Lee said, oh, he's a guy, he's going to fight for you, just do it. Well, I paid Stanley Hawthorne $3,000. Stanley goes and files bankruptcy, doesn't owe anybody. This is just all surprise to me. Stanley said, I'm going to fight for you. Then I don't hear from Stanley. Then Stanley comes back and says, look, you're taking a plea. You're going to sign that you did file a false police report. You're lying about the sexual abuse. Here's a plea agreement. You can't report any further sexual abuse for 2 years. I mean, this was sick railroading. Screw your kids. This is a crime, and this is us, and we're organized crime, and this is what's going to happen. I told him I didn't give a crap what he thought. And the reason was a local attorney in Washington, thank God. I was out, you know, eating or something one night, and I met this young kid that had just, you know, passed his bar, and I said, and he told me that. I said, oh, man, you got to hear the story. And I told him the story. He said, he was blown away. He said, first of all, do not go back to New Hampshire. He says, you need to contact them and tell them you no longer give you jurisdiction. I said, well, how in the heck am I going to do that? I just can't do that. He said, well, you see what they've done to you before? If you go back, you're basically saying, keep doing what you're doing to me. He says, if you go back, that's, you know, that's just going back and telling them to keep doing it. That's not holding their feet to the fire and said, look, these are crimes, you need to do something. So I immediately took his advice. He knew what he was talking about, and I had to appreciate it. First he said, man, those are obvious crimes. So he took me that route. And then I pled to the Congressman Inslee from Washington. And his office was just blown away by it. And they said, well, bring your evidence in. We're going to go to the FBI for you.
You have evidence?
Absolutely. Hundreds of pages.
Okay. That's
from the New Hampshire Department of Justice. Michael Bain told me by phone. He didn't put it in writing, but he told me by phone, Chief Pickering violated your civil rights. You need to go get an attorney.
Where's the FBI at this stage?
Well, the funny thing was, I'm driving on the road in Washington around all this time of these false arrests, and I receive a phone call from FBI Supervisor Jay Fallon. And I'm driving down the road, and I can't talk. I'm driving safe time. So I said, well, Mr. Fallon, I'm going to have to call you back. He says, no, you're going to need to pull your car over. You need to hear what I have to say. And I had a client with me. We were going to give a price on a big yacht I was going to start repairing in Washington. So I pulled over, and Jay Fallon says to me, he says, I got 4 things to tell you, and you need to pay attention. He says, 1, you don't have enough money to sue Chief Pickering. He said, number 2, the FBI is not going to arrest John Pickering for you. He said, number 3, you need to start recording any further conversations between yourself and John Pickering. And 4, oh my God, I've got these memorized. I can't remember the 4th one. 1 was you couldn't sue him. We're not going to arrest him. You need to document your contacts with him. And there was a 4th that I can't recall right now. We're not going to arrest him.
And once you met those...
Oh, and the 4th was the FBI is not going to help you with this. Basically.
Well, thank you,
honestly, sir. Exactly. And okay. I'm on the phone, and my client is sitting right next to me in my Mercedes. And I get right back on the road, and he heard everything. And he did not want to go to my meeting with me. He basically wanted me to take him back home. He said, you're on the phone with the FBI, and they're talking to you like that. You know, you got this black cloud over you. And so
my boat's going to sink. It ain't happening, man.
Yeah. So literally, guess what? About a few days later, same phone call, same guy, Jay Fallon. Hey, Mike, Jay Fallon. Yeah, Jay. Yeah. Pull over. I need to talk to you. I might not have been driving this time, but he goes through the same spiel. FBI is not going to help you. You do not have enough money to sue John Pickering. FBI is not going to arrest John Pickering, and 4, you need to record your conversations with John Pickering. But this time, I do remember I was at another shop. I was picking up an alternator to install on somebody's boat in Tacoma, Washington. Because I'm sitting there arguing with this guy's trying to get my order for this part. Well, I ordered the part. I went to pick it up. So, again, you know, I'm razzled by this FBI agent. And I'm not the kind of person that's really going to roll over for him. So maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, I called the FBI, Boston FBI. I said, let me speak to Jay Fallon. It's time for me to let Jay Fallon know that I don't give a crap who you are or what badge you have. If you think you're going to tell me you're not going to protect my kids, I will. You know, if you want to kill me in the middle of the street, that's what you're going to have to do. I called back to question him about his motives, and the receptionist says, he retired. He's not here anymore. And this was literally 3 weeks or so after this phone call. But to speed forward, not only did that FBI agent do that, there was another FBI agent. I went to the Inspector General of the United States for U.S. Department of Justice, you know, who you go to if there's fraud in the FBI. And I'm doing all my research. I'm calling all the people I'm supposed to. I'm sending fax documents. I'm certified letters, everything.
You know, that seems to be a common theme with fathers who seem, or mothers, who, or grandparents who seem to be going through different but similar processes. You become an expert in the field of law.
Yes, you do.
It's interesting.
You're trying to protect your children.
Right.
And you might not have, you know, 20 grand to hand to the attorney and say, come spend hours with me. You know, because once they hear it, the attorneys say, this is convoluted. I'll spend 200 hours just trying to get through this. And that right there is 50,000, you know, it's a ton of money. And, you know.
Well, we're actually running in, you know, we're getting towards the closing of the hours, actually. So what I want to know is, have you seen your children lately?
Oh, of course.
Okay.
So I always stayed in contact with them by phone. But after the threats by the FBI and so forth, believe it or not, and the mother kept begging me, come back to the East Coast. I said, well, I was accosted before the second hearing. They had 2 guys in a pickup truck literally pick me up from in Conway, New Hampshire. They were eyeing me, and I was waiting for a cab. There's no cabs up there in the mountain. I took this ride. I look over, this guy's got this huge bear knife, and they're both looking at me while we were driving down the road. And they delivered me right to the steps of the courthouse. So literally, swear to God.
You got a bear knife?
Well, no, they had a bear knife, and they pulled it on me. It was a silent threat. And literally.
It's not funny. It's just well, it's not every day. Okay, I'm going to take a bear knife.
Hey,
all right, whatever. Okay.
Somebody catch you in an alley, they can do whatever. So after all these things happen and I'm getting the calls from FBI, I literally just start to lose my nerve. I said, one, I'm fighting for my kids. I'm not getting them back. People are lying to me. FBI is calling me, telling me, screw me. I literally got scared, and literally I moved out of the house that I was in, and I literally went in hiding, started sleeping in the back of my van. I kept a cell phone, my laptop. I was still trying to do business, but you really lose. You start to really lose touch. It's illegal abuse syndrome. I've had people refer to it as. So I went into hiding, and but I was still working and sending money to my kids, and I called to speak to my kids, and the mother's begging me to come back. And come to find out, New Hampshire was telling her, you need to get him come back, and we need to close these cases, because if they stay open, maybe we'll get in trouble or something. I never did. And then finally, you got to hear these. There was a major drug bust in Connecticut after the kids left New Hampshire. They couldn't afford to stay in the house up in the mountains, White Mountains. So she came back to Meriden, Connecticut. Within a year, I sent her a large check after I did one job, about $2,000. Within a couple of months, there's a big major drug bust at the kid's house. And it's one of her older kids. Major drug bust, but guess what? Nobody lets me know. I only found out about it at the end of 2011. It's hidden. They've hidden it out of all the computers in Connecticut, Meriden, Connecticut.
Because they're still juveniles.
Well, no matter what, I was still supposed to be informed by some of these are my children living at a home and there's a major drug bust.
Right.
And I believe my son was physically abused because he had this huge gas on him.
Are they back in New Hampshire?
No.
Okay.
So they're in Connecticut. There's a major drug bust. Nobody tells me about it. 2007. 2008, my son winds up in a coma. He's left outside riding, no helmet, no shoes. He's hit by a car. Thank God he did not get run over. He ran to the side. But he's left in a coma. And I immediately, I mean, as soon as they called me from the hospital, I was doing a boat job. I had left there, gone down to California. I was doing actually a surgeon's boat way out in the Delta. I think it is Delta, the water system, California. I get a phone call, and the mother says, have they called you yet? I said, no, what happened? She says, Ronnie got hit by a car. And I'm angry, but my first question, did he get run over? Did he get run over? Because I know if you get run over, you're in trouble. You know, if you get thrown in the air, that's a little better, but run over is bad. He only hit the side, flew up in the air, and landed. So he's in a coma. As soon as I hang up from her, I call Judge Albee's courtroom. And I talked to the clerk. I said, what are you guys doing with all this garbage on me and the false charges? Well, you're in trouble, and when you turn yourself in, I said, do you know where my children are? And she said, no, I don't know where your children are. I said, well, I guess what? He's in a coma right now, and you better hope that he pulls through, or I will be there on your front doorstep. And I hung up the phone. That was probably a little bit risky, but it was, one, to let New Hampshire know that, look, you know, you guys have gone way too far. So my son's in a coma. The next day, the mother runs to the newspaper. I don't know if the police set this up or not, but she runs and says, oh, I told him minutes before the accident to put on his helmet. He had a helmet. Well, she caves in a day later. It's found to be a big lie. He didn't own a helmet. So here's this woman. She's left my son out. He gets hit. She's supposed to be there. Nothing happens. She prints the lie. Nobody comes to me. DCF should have come to me and said, you need to get your kids away from her. Again, it was covered up. No big deal. I kept contacting everybody. I said, look, they have false warrants for my arrest because I refused to come back to New Hampshire. I said, I sent a letter to Governor Rell of Connecticut. I said, listen, I'm trying to protect my children. I just want to know I come back there and you guys aren't going to let them come hog tie me or anything. I just want to come back. She gave me no response. She said, I don't care what's happened to you. I'll turn it over to this person if they contact you. Connecticut really did nothing. So then my son was in a coma, and thankfully he pulled through. I was working for a doctor, a client at the time. He said, don't lose your mind. You know, he said, it's good. He's 8 years old. Kids pull through these things, so do not worry. You know, just stay in contact. The swelling needs to go down. So finally, you know, my son pulls through it, and I'm talking to the mother. I said, this is absurd. And she's trying to blame me. Well, you should be here. I said, no, you need to talk to New Hampshire and get them to stop the crimes that they've committed. You're under investigation by the FBI. I pushed that for all these years. You're supposedly under, and I have emails from the constituent services with my congressman. Yes, the FBI says they're doing something. Well, just now recently, FBI says, we're not going to help you. We ain't doing nothing. I sent them a FOIA request. They just recently, within the last 3 weeks, they sent back nothing. So how are you telling me, they kept telling me through the congressman's office, yeah, well, something's being done. Well, guess what? They haven't questioned anybody. I've been begging for years. I said, go ask people under oath. You can ask anybody just on the side of the road. Did you, hit that person? They can lie to you.
What do you want New Hampshire to do right now?
As I had begged Kelly out, I swear I left her 30 messages. I faxed her. I left them on her voicemail, everything. I said, Kelly, these are serious crimes. There were crimes, this, that, and the other. I need to protect my kids. No response, no nothing. She's always come back and said, we don't deal with that. What I would expect any able-bodied person who has fiduciary responsibility in the state government position to do is one, and of what you guys battles, is you've got Michael Delaney given a ton of blatant evidence of people denying other citizens of basic civil rights, civil liberties, constitutional rights. Just on an ongoing basis, standard procedure is to crap on almost everyone. And when you see this and you see children being left in comas, families being ripped apart, torn apart, and you've got someone, instead of Mike Delaney taking the opportunity to say, this is horrible, I need to do something, and who instead says, who opened this floodgate, closed this floodgate, You're showing me someone who is lazy and is not taking the position of a lawyer, of being one responsible to protect the citizens. You're showing me someone who has no interest at all in protecting the rights of his citizens or his people under him.
So when you come before the Redress of Grievance Committee, you're going to ask them to...
One, Judge Albee should not be on any bench. For her to have uttered the words, "Do not go to the media." During one of our hearings, Judge Albee stated, just to no one in particular, don't go to the media. And that was a message for me, and that was to say, we're doing some crimes to you. Don't go to the newspapers trying to get it printed. We don't need them to know this. And also, she watched 2 attorneys be forced to flee and try to give me bogus pleas and take the cash and run, and really didn't care. One, I'm going to ask that Redress Committee to seriously grab her and get rid of her. I went to the Judicial Conduct Committee and gave them paperwork on her. Back in 2006, they tried to cover for her. They said, no, you're just not happy with her ruling. Now, recently in 2011, JCC came back and said, there's a staleness to it. You waited too long. Well, they're just giving me anything that they want. But they did not say she was not guilty of these things. One, Judge Albee should not be anywhere near. 2, you need to bring these people forward who are DCYF, who would generate a report trying to cover for a police officer committing civil rights violations as opposed to doing her job. DCYF needs to be brought up on charges. Those are serious charges. You cannot, that's no different than a cop taking a shot at somebody running down the street, shooting them in the back. It's just not, you could kill the whole family, which in fact they have done, because the older son, who is now 20 years old, is attempted to kill someone. He stabbed them. Not only did he get busted for the drug dealing in 2007, but 2009 he stabbed someone several times, and he got 8 years. So he's serving 4 years now. The other son is the younger son, a year older. He's doing nothing, sleeping until 4 o'clock every day, smoking pot every day. So you've basically got a family that's been shattered. I've got a son who's got some brain damage that I have to deal with, and nobody from New Hampshire has once said to me anything good. The only thing I did hear, Rebecca Woodard, New Hampshire Department of Justice attorney, did send me a letter, I believe, last year. But she spoke to me on the phone. She says there is an investigation because there are children involved. What more she won't give me. What more Ian Rice won't give me. They won't tell me what's going on, and when I call... Because
it's in a sealed envelope, most likely, right? Is that correct?
I don't know. I'm the biological father of somebody you hurt. You need to answer to me.
So, the Attorney General, DCYF, Judge...
Albee, Pamela Albee.
And what was the 4th? Was there another?
There were a couple of attorneys, Stanley Hawthorne, Jennifer Haskell. You've got 2 people from DCYF, Athena Rios, and Justine Octavic.
And you want to bring these things to light.
Those people need to come forward. And first of all, did you know Chief Pickering was committing civil rights crimes? The answer is yes. Everybody on the West Coast knew. Everybody I went to, I said, I need help here. They said, wow, that's, those are crimes. Everybody on the East Coast is saying, cover for the chief. We're all friends here. One, you need to get to the fact that somebody needs to tell the truth. If they don't want to tell the truth, they need to let me cross-examine them under oath, because I'm going to come up with something. Now, the FBI keeps acting like, oh, maybe we don't have a case here. You haven't asked anyone. You haven't questioned anyone under oath. So basically what they're saying is, you can keep lying. I haven't made you swear on a stack of Bibles.
Have you brought your case before judicial child abuse yet?
You know what? I sent you guys a breakdown maybe 3 weeks ago. But,
Okay.
You and I have conversed, and you guys get hundreds of them. So you might not even be to mine yet. But I have, sent some information to you, and I so look forward. I'm hoping that you'll give me the opportunity to...
Well, Michael, what we're going to do right now is we're going to, obviously we're going to publish this particular interview, and we're going to put it out there for... In New Hampshire, you have to have a state representative to take up your case and to basically sponsor your petition.
Yeah, we spoke about that.
So
Absolutely.
What we're going to do with this particular interview is we're going to make it available to all the state reps, and we'll ask them, we'll plead that they will listen to your case and then get in touch with you, or you can get in touch with them due to your testimony here today, or your conversation.
Yeah, yeah.
Are there any final thoughts that you want to bring to the table here with
What more can I say? I mean, what I'd like to say to the parents who are out there who do not know what to do it's a sink or swim thing, okay? And none of us wants to sink. When you're dealing with your children, you just don't want to sink. You just got to keep swimming. So what I'd like to say is anybody out there who has been wronged by any of these people, keep fighting. Contact the Department of Justice. Contact FBI. The FBI recently told me, yeah, one of the agents who answered my call basically said, you know what, we've been discussing this. We're getting a lot of calls out of New Hampshire based on family court crimes, what it looks like, and we're concerned. So I just want to tell the parents, I've been at it since 2006, and sometimes I've given up a little bit. Not really given up, but you have to take time off, otherwise you're going to lose your mind. Right. So I might take a month off and not writing letters. But, when you get the energy, just keep sending the letters. Maybe you're going to find somebody who really cares. But thus far, Kelly Ayotte and Michael Bayan and Paul, I can't think of Paul's name, from the New Hampshire Department of Justice, but all these guys, a lot of them just basically try to cover up and run away. And what we need to do is just keep trying until someone puts their foot down. That person right now should be Mike Delaney, but I'm really disappointed that a man with his responsibility and who is a lawyer who can obviously see the blatant crimes here. I want to appeal to Michael Delaney and say, Michael, you're an attorney. You see blatant criminal acts here against citizens. This is not too different than what world wars have started over. You're picking a certain people, parents, and you're allowing people to attack them, and basically you're making it just a modus operandi. This is what you do. Michael Delaney needs to stand up and do his job. I'm gonna sue him. If I can get him before a judge, I'm gonna eat him alive.
Mike, I appreciate you coming on the phone on the show, not the phone.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me, Kevin.
And we'll look forward to hearing some more of your story.
You will.
All right. Thank you.